Hello, my sweet friends, and welcome back to Magic Treehouse Merlin Missions, number 12, Eve of the Emperor Penguin by Mary Pope Osborne. And today we will be reading Chapter 7, The Emperor. Clutching the wand, Jack lay in the pitch dark. He pushed up his goggles, but he still couldn't see anything. "You there?" It was Annie's voice. "Yes," said Jack. "You okay?" "Yes, but we're really in trouble now," said Jack. "We fell way down into a dark hole, and the wand doesn't work." He struggled to sit up. "Well, maybe we should try again," said Annie. "What's the point?" said Jack. "We'll never get out of here now." Jack and Annie were silent for a moment. "Hey, we're moving," Annie said. "Moving?" said Jack. They were moving. The ice under them was gliding silently and smoothly through the darkness. "What's happening?" said Jack. "Maybe we're not in a hole," said Annie. "Look, there's light ahead." In the distance, they saw a glimmer of light. As they kept moving, the light grew brighter. It grew brighter and brighter until they slipped out of a dark tunnel into dazzling light. Now Jack could see they were lying on a slab of ice, floating down a narrow river. "We're on an ice raft," said Annie. "What's happening?" said Jack again. "I don't know," said Annie, "but I think maybe the wand did work." The ice raft floated through light and shadow, past tall frozen cliffs. Then it glided toward an archway in one of the cliff walls. "Where are we going?" asked Jack. The raft floated through the archway into a gigantic cavern. The cavern was like a huge icy cathedral. Its walls shone as if they were covered with silver. "Ooh," whispered Annie. "What is this place?" said Jack. "I don't know, but now I'm sure the wand worked," said Annie. The ice raft kept floating along a thin river inside the cavern, past icy archways and jagged ledges. Jack felt as if they were being watched. He thought he heard whispering and breathing. "Look," said Annie. She pointed to one of the cave openings. Standing on the ledge outside the cave entrance were two penguins. They looked just like the emperor penguins Jack and Annie had seen earlier. Jack and Annie stood up so they could see better. As their raft floated toward the ledge, the penguin in front stepped back into the cave. The other didn't move. "Oh, man," said Jack. The penguin wore a glittering crown. "The ancient crown," Jack whispered. "We found it." Annie didn't say anything. She just smiled as the ice raft floated straight toward the emperor penguin. It hit the ledge with a gentle bump. "Hi," Annie said simply. The penguin made deep murmuring sounds. He didn't speak in human speech, but somehow Jack and Annie could understand every word. "Welcome to the cave of the ancient crown." Annie bowed. The penguin had such dignity that Jack bowed too. The emperor spoke again. "Come." He beckoned with his wing and then turned. Annie stepped off the ice raft onto the ledge and followed the emperor into the cave. Jack put the wand of Dianthus into his pack. He hoisted the pack onto his back and tried to balance his weight so he could step from the raft to the ledge. "Hurry," said Annie, poking her head out of the cave. "I'm coming," said Jack. He leapt from the raft onto the ledge and then hurried into the cave. The cave of the ancient crown was sparkling. Icicles hung everywhere. Pillars of ice glimmered with blue light. From behind a row of ice pillars came the sound of music. strange music, unlike any Jack had ever heard before. It sounded like the music of 1,000 icicle wind chimes. The Emperor led Jack and Annie around the pillars. "Oh, wow," said Annie. Penguin couples were dancing to the strange music on a glittering ice rink. Pink and blue lights spilled over the dancers as they gracefully glided and turned. Some penguins danced silently with their eyes closed. Others touched beaks. A group of baby penguins danced together, hopping and sliding on the ice. How could this be happening?" stammered Jack. "Don't ask," whispered Annie. "It's magic." A murmur went through the ballroom as the penguins began to notice Jack and Annie. Though the strange music kept playing, all the dancers came to a stop. None of the penguins seemed alarmed, though. They all looked at their visitors with calm, friendly faces. The Emperor spoke to Jack and Annie. "Word reached us earlier that you saved one of our own. We have been hoping to meet you." Puzzled, Jack looked at Annie. "When we first got here, remember?" she whispered. "Oh, right," said Jack. He'd forgotten all about rescuing the small penguin from the petrel. "You may stay with us for as long as you wish," said the Emperor. "You are honored members of our tribe now." "Thank you," said Annie, "but we can't stay long. We came to Antarctica to look for a secret of happiness." "To save one of our friends," said Jack. It felt natural to tell the Emperor and his tribe the truth. They lived in a world as magical as the world of Camelot. "His name is Merlin. He's the magician of Camelot, and he's really sad." The penguins began murmuring and whispering to one another. Jack couldn't understand what they were saying. From the back of the crowd, a baby penguin waddled forward, the tiniest one in the tribe. "Oh, look," breathed Annie. Jack grinned from ear to ear. The baby was a fuzzy gray ball with big dark eyes. It was even smaller than the young penguin they had saved from the petrel. The little penguin waddled up to the Emperor. "Peep, peep," she said. The Emperor looked down at her. "Peep, peep." "She says she wishes to go with you," said the Emperor. "She wants to help your friend." "But she's so little," said Annie. "What about her mom and dad?" "She is an orphan," said the Emperor. "Her parents were lost in a terrible storm, but she is very brave and full of joy. I know that she will bring happiness to your friend Merlin. Sorry, friends." Annie turned to the baby penguin. "Thank you," she said. Then she leaned over and patted the penguin's tiny head. "Oh, touch her, Jack. She's so soft." Jack patted the baby on the head, too. As he touched her soft little feathers, she tilted her head, and she stared at him with her big eyes. Jack felt a wave of tenderness for the baby penguin. He couldn't believe she was an orphan. Tears came to his eyes, but he quickly blinked them away and cleared his throat. "Thanks, Penny," he said. Annie giggled. Jack couldn't believe he'd just named the little penguin Penny. Usually Annie was the one who named the animals. "Peep," said Penny. "She would like you to pick her up," said the Emperor. "Oh, okay," said Jack. He leaned over and held out his arms. Penny snuggled close to his parka. "Peep." Jack laughed and picked Penny up. He held the little penguin tightly. The Emperor turned to the crowd. He said something Jack couldn't understand. The crowd parted to make a path. The Emperor nodded at Jack and Annie. "Let us go now," he said. As Jack, Annie, and Penny left with the Emperor, the penguins flapped their wings against their bodies, applauding. "Goodbye," Annie called to the crowd. Jack smiled and waved. "Peep," said Penny. The icicle chime music grew softer and softer as Jack and Annie followed the Emperor through the cave. The tall penguin led them outside onto the ledge. "Thank you for your help today," he said. "Thank you for letting Penny come with us," said Annie. "We promised to take good care of her." "And we'll take her to Merlin," said Jack. The Emperor touched the orphan's downy head with the tip of his wing. He leaned close to her and softly murmured something in her ear. "Peep," Penny said. The Emperor looked up at Jack and Annie. Silently he bowed to them, and they bowed back. Then the Emperor Penguin turned and walked back into the cave of the ancient crown. Jack sighed. For a moment he hated to leave the enchanted world of the penguins. "Oh, she's cold, Jack," said Annie. Jack looked down. Penny was shivering in her arms. "Put her inside your parka," said Annie. Jack unzipped his parka and carefully placed the little penguin against his sweater. He pulled the zipper back up. He held Penny close to him. "Perfect," said Annie. "Just make sure she can breathe okay." "Don't worry," said Jack, patting his jacket. "I'll take good care of her." "Do you think we can use the wand now to get back?" said Annie. Jack nodded. "I think so," he said. "I can't think of any other way." "Should we tell it to take us to the treehouse?" asked Annie. "Or Frog Creek? Or Camelot?" "No, we have to go back to Mount Erebus first," said Jack. "If Nancy finds out that Pete never picked us up, she really will have a heart attack." "Oh, right," said Annie. "Then we better put on our masks and goggles again." Jack pulled up his face mask and pulled down his goggles. "Get the wand out of my pack," he said. Annie reached into Jack's backpack and pulled out the wand of Dianthus. "Okay, ready?" she said. Jack patted his parka, comforting the baby penguin. "Here we go, Penny," he said. "On a big adventure." Annie held up the wand and then took a deep breath and said, "Take us back to Nancy." In less than an instant, Jack and Annie and Penny were on the slope of Mount Erebus. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you back next